If you know a few basic flavor concepts, it's easy to make better coffee. It doesn't matter what your brew method is, so whether you're making drip, espresso, press, pour over, or you've got an automatic bean to cup machine, these basic concepts will help you fine tune flavor and make better coffee. Hey, coffee lovers, Marc here from Whole Latte Love. Today, I'll look at variables you can control when making coffee and how to manipulate each to affect flavor. Now, depending on your brew method and equipment, you may have less control of some variables than others. When that's the case, you can often use one of the other variables you do have control of to have a similar effect on flavor. So, the items I'll cover today are beans, that's bean selection, including roast level, grind, that's grind quality and particle size, coffee dose, that's the amount or weight of coffee used to brew. Then we'll see how brew temperature affects flavor. We'll look at brew time, that's how long ground coffee is in contact with brew water, and I'll finish up with water quality. You know, coffee is mostly water, so at first thought you'd think you'd want to use the purest possible water, but it turns out it can be too pure. More on that coming up. So beans, grinding your own beans fresh right before brewing, that's the single most important thing you can do to make better coffee. That wonderful smell of fresh ground coffee, yeah, those are the aromatics evaporating into the air. So the longer between grinding and brewing, the more flavors are escaping that are never going to make it into your cup. Now, you've got a lot of choices when it comes to beans, so I'll focus on a few key things which can help you make selections. First is the roast level. As the roast gets darker, you tend to taste the bean less and the roast more. In fact, lesser quality beans are sometimes roasted very dark to cover up defects in flavor. Now, that's not always the case, and if you like dark roasts, the majority are just fine. On the other hand, lighter roasts tend to feature the flavor of the bean and are more common for specialty coffees like single origin beans, where all the beans come from the same growing area. Incidentally, lighter roasts, well, they retain more caffeine. Growing altitude affects flavor. Here's a graphic with general flavor traits by altitude. If you like coffee that's simple, soft, and sweet, tend towards lower altitude coffees. As you go higher in altitude, flavors get more intense with wine-like traits, including fruit, spice, and floral notes. Coffee grows slower at altitude due mostly to lower temperatures. That slow growth usually means smaller beans with more concentrated flavors and usually higher prices. Before we get into grind, dose, brew temps, and time, I need to define under and over extraction, as those four variables we talked about can affect extraction. With under extraction, you're not pulling enough out of the coffee, you're leaving flavor behind, and you end up with thin, weak coffee with sour flavor. With over extraction, you're pulling too much out of the coffee and you end up with bitter, heavy cups. So the goal is a balanced extraction, and you get there by controlling the variables available with your brew method and equipment. So grind. If you're grinding fresh, you will always have control of grind size. If you're buying a grinder, do yourself a favor, get a burr grinder and stay away from those that use blades. They aren't really grinders at all, but choppers. They hack coffee into random sized particles and you end up over extracting the small particles and under extracting the larger ones. You'll get an unbalanced, maybe mucky coffee with both sour and bitter flavors. Burr grinders, yeah, they're the way to go. They produce consistent particle sizes for even extractions. Grind size is directly related to brewing time. For espresso, with a brewing time maybe around 30 seconds, it's a very fine grind, somewhere between not quite powdery and granulated sugar. For cold brew, with a brewing time running up to 12 hours or more, the grind needs to be extra coarse. So the shorter the brew water contact time, the finer the grind. To adjust for bitter flavors with grind, go a little coarser. To adjust for sour flavors, grind a little finer. Now, keep in mind you can use grind size adjustment together with other variables like brew temperature and time if they're available with your brew method or equipment to make similar flavor corrections. Now, in espresso brewing, grind size adjustment is critical. Tiny changes in grind size can make a huge difference. If you'd like to learn more about that, use the link up here to watch my video on the process of dialing in grind size for espresso. Adjusting the coffee dose, that is the amount or weight of coffee used for brewing, adjusts the strength of flavor. So if you keep all other variables the same and just use more coffee, you're just going to get the same flavor, just a little stronger. Now, that's simplified a bit, especially for a brew method like espresso, where grind size and dose weight have a very close relationship, which is amplified by the very short brew time. If you'd like to dive deeper into that, use the link up here to watch my video on using brew ratios in espresso extractions. The recommended temperature range for all coffee brewing methods is 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. For our friends in the measurement developed world, that's 90.5 to 96 degrees Celsius. So how to use that? Well, if you have control of brew temperature, the basic guideline is towards the cooler end of that range for darker roasted coffee and move towards the hotter end for lighter roasts. Now, so you know, temperature is where a lot of bargain priced coffee brewing equipment falls short. Many cheaper drip brewers and entry-level espresso appliances make brew water that's out of that range. If you're serious about drip coffee, use a link up here and look for equipment by Techniform, Bmore, Bonavita, and Breville with either Specialty Coffee Association testing and certification or temperature control. For brew time, depending on your brew method, we're talking about the total brew water contact or immersion time. Here again, it's generally a story of over or under extraction. If time is too short, it'll be an under extraction. Too long, and you'll over extract. For drip coffee, you're all set with an SCA certified coffee maker. They're tested for proper brew times. For other methods like press, pour over, and cold brew, you have complete control. Now, things get a little more complex with espresso, where grind size and dose weight determine brew time. As mentioned at the start, coffee is mostly water, so for good flavor and to protect your equipment from scale or corrosion, it's important to use water with proper mineral levels. Now, I have had a lot of questions over the years asking about using distilled or reverse osmosis water. Now, it seems like that would make sense, but those very pure waters lack minerals, and you do need some minerals for good flavor. Ultra pure water, it's an incredibly good solvent. It over extracts coffee and can cause corrosion in brewing equipment, and that's why distilled and RO water is never stored or transported in metal. On the other hand, hard water with high mineral levels can cause scale to build up in your brewing equipment. If you don't descale, left unchecked, it can cause equipment failure. So what do? First, know your water quality. If it's hard, yeah, you probably already know that. So use a filter that removes chemicals and gives you mineral levels that reduce or eliminate scale buildup. You can use the link up here to check out filters ranging from systems for plumbed-in espresso machines to a range of products, including in-tank filters and pitchers with calcium-reducing ion exchange technology. So those are some basic flavor concepts, the things you can control to make better coffee and espresso. If you have any comments or questions, use those comments down there and I'd be happy to give you some help. Or if you want some one-on-one advice, our coffee experts will talk to you by phone, chat, or email, and you can see the video description for our contact information. I'm Mark. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe and come on back soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love. Want to learn more? Subscribe now so you'll know about the latest videos on everything coffee from Whole Latte Love.